I mean, this is why I hate homeowners associations and all this stuff. Rob, you're down in Florida right now. Man, look at that tan you got, too. You look sexy, baby.
I know. I know. And I appreciate you saying that. That's you're not homophobic to say that. I'm very tan. I haven't seen a cloud in like 4 days. It's been pretty good. Yeah, and I hate HOAs as well.
Raining it cold. Take it away, Rob.
Carl, thanks so much. Good to see you as always. Tonight, a broader look at how much of our tax money is lit on fire as the Somali fraud story becomes a damning indictment of big government. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Some breaking news here off the top. After Nick Shirley and his mom blew the Minnesota Somali scandal open all over again, the story we covered immensely yesterday, Trump's Department of Health and Human Services cutting off funds for healthcare fraudsters nationwide. This video was just released about 90 minutes ago. HHS saying this easy scam is over. Take a listen.
We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants.
First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I've just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
There you go right there. A full audit is coming. No money for child care going out in this country unless the state can prove exactly where it's going. No more tossing your money around like nobody cares, at least in this one area. But as you'll see, the fraud is all over the place. We're going to get into that tonight. But finally, some action as this story of the daycares and the child cares is just getting uglier by the day. The media, of course, desperate to run cover and distort the truth on such a big, crushing scandal for open border, big government Democrats. And that's what we're seeing from the few outlets that have been covering this story. It was covered on CNN last night on that one later night show that only has ratings because of Scott Jennings. As expected, the host ran to the defense of the Somalians, going as far to say to claim that the reason Nick Shirley was told a Somali daycare didn't want his money to take care of his own son, the reason that he was thrown out of so many fake daycare centers, the reason that he was screamed at inside of these very shady-looking daycares with fully tinted windows, she says the reason is because the Somali people are under attack.
You knock on the door of a daycare center, and you're like, let me in, let me in. What do you expect people to do? You know, in some of those cases, there were children in there. What do you want people to do in that situation? Open the door and say, come on in, when they know that the Somali community is under attack, is being threatened every single day?
Imagine how scammed the country would be if she made all the decisions. Imagine if these people had more power, more control. Imagine if we had no common sense, which is what the media shows us every day, just a complete lack of common sense. Shirley, in those videos, never demanded to be let inside, as she claims. He simply knocked on the door of daycare centers that had blacked out windows that looked like rub and tugs in a shady neighborhood and started asking very logical questions. He asked if he could enroll his own son and was told no. When was the last time a daycare told you, no, we don't want your business, we don't want your money? This was how the Somalian refugees running these daycares responded to this kid. Take a look.
Get out of here, man. Get the out. Move. Get the out of here. Resist. You cannot come in here. Resist. We don't care. We don't know where it is. Get out. No, who do you work for? Nick Shirley. I don't care about Nick. But who do you work for? Nick Shirley. I don't care about Nick Shirley.
I mean, can you imagine? Look at what we've let into our country. Does anybody think these people are innocent? How can anyone watch that video and come to the summation that Abby Phillip on CNN tried to make? Nobody, but she doesn't believe that. Nobody believes that. It's outrageous to believe that. They're going to do everything that they can to make this story go away. It has been a long time since we have seen such a clear indictment of everything that the modern Democrat Party stands for: a large, wasteful government and very outlandish safety nets, including tremendous amounts of money to fund daycare and let Somalian refugees who just got to the country open up hundreds of them in a city. Does anybody think this is a smart way to run a country? The country the left is pushing us toward will inevitably fail. That's what's proven by this story. This fraud story is dead proof of that, so of course it must be destroyed. CBS has been covering the story, claiming, though, because state regulators have not found anything, and I'm sure they really didn't look, and also because their network's very cursory investigation didn't find anything either, that the dozens of child care businesses with blacked out windows and no kids inside, mysteriously opened by Somalian refugees in recent years, must totally be legit.
We visited those sites too, as did state inspectors many times over the last 6 months, and we found the facts on the ground tell a different story. Those daycares, many of them were written up for safety violations, but that's not the same as being fraudulent. And there are 14 programs, Medicaid-funded programs, that are currently under investigation by state and federal government. But child care is not one of them.
Yeah, no evidence. Always no evidence. Just like there was no evidence of Hunter Biden's laptop, and there's a lot of things they can't find evidence for. Take a listen to this former Minnesota Homeland Security employee who says he was forced to resign after 10 years on the job for blowing the whistle on this fraud that nobody can find evidence of, even though it's right in front of their faces. Here he is testifying in 2018.
Some of the things that I worked on, they were daycare frauds based out of Department of Human Services. They were overwhelming. The dollar amounts were upwards of 15 million. I tracked individuals overseas in countries that are not friendly to the United States, where they would spend months over there while they were operating their DHS daycare business.
Spending months in Middle Eastern Islamic countries while operating daycares in the United States that it appears were likely funding terrorism. Here's more from that whistleblower.
This is not a Minnesota problem. It started in Minnesota, but we found an individual in our investigation who was teaching and training other states to do this, and it's spreading out. It's in Seattle, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Georgia. It's everywhere.
Of course it's everywhere. It's free money. Who's not going to get in on this, especially when nobody's going to look at it? And that was 7 years ago. That was 7 years ago. Imagine how much of our money has been lit on fire by our government. Imagine how much of your money has been used to fund terror throughout the Middle East. It's bad enough. They waste it. They throw it away. It's funding terror, a scam that's happening all over our country, not just in Minnesota. Ohio also has a massive Somali population, also dealing with fraud. Look at this. More than a dozen Medicaid providers in that state have been accused of engaging in fraud. 8 providers indicted and accused of phantom billing. 9 others announced as facing fraud charges. Another reporter, Anthony Rubin, visiting daycare centers in Columbus, Ohio, the second largest Somali community in the United States. Here's what he found.
We're going to see if anybody picks up or answers the door. Let's see. So, it's locked. We're ringing the doorbell here. Knocking on the door. Nobody's picking up. You know anything about this place here?
It's a daycare center owned by Somalians and stuff like that.
Have you ever seen any kids in this place here?
No, not that I know of. They use the back, so I've never seen nobody come out the front.
They use the back. It's so easy to steal from the U.S. government. They're just copy-pasting this anywhere we allow these refugees to live. They all know about it. They all know the scam. It's very easy to do. They're not the smartest people, and they're figuring it out really fast, and it's everywhere. There is zero interest in stopping this fraud. Politicians don't care. They get unlimited money, right? We send them trillions, and if that's not enough, and it never is, they just print more. Why would anybody in Washington waste their time auditing federal money? What's the upside in that? They can't win elections on auditing waste. Nobody cares that a huge chunk of your money, the money the government steals out of your paycheck, is lit on fire, and it is everywhere. The exposure for California is going to be enormous. The largest blue state just now coming under the microscope. This will likely be what kills Gavin Newsom's political ambitions. A tweet from Congressman Kevin Kiley starting it all in response to a Newsmax report that was posted on X. A third of community college applicants, he says, were fake scammers in his state. $17 billion spent on a high-speed rail with no track. $24 billion on homelessness disappeared. $24 billion. $17 billion. $32 billion lost to unemployment fraud. Medi-Cal and SNAP are rife with improper payments. We talked about SNAP, right? This is everywhere. We honestly might not even need income tax in this country if they would simply just prevent fraud and theft and waste. But again, nobody cares. Imagine how bad it is at the federal level. Scott Turner, Trump's guy over at HUD, revealing potential fraud of nearly $6 billion in housing subsidies. This is such a spectacular indictment of the entire left-wing vision for this country. It is truly fiscal suicide to have a massive government in a country this big with very wide safety nets. Voting Democrat is voting for our own demise because they just want more of this. We will fiscally collapse. Mehek Cooke is an attorney and Ohio resident who has an incredible fraud story coming from the Buckeye State, and she joins us now with that. Mehek, good to see you again. You're talking about Somali caretakers that get government subsidies, bilking us out of a fortune. Tell us your story.
So, Rob, I had a couple whistleblowers come to me. They're providers in the state of Ohio that had not only seen the fraud, but went to legislators and a lot of state agencies to say fraud is occurring. Somalians were coming in. Many of them didn't speak English, but it was the same type of symptoms. They said that they had aches and pains. They would go through tons of testing, and the doctors would say, you don't qualify for any additional care in the state of Ohio. And their response was either, we'll make it worth your while, which sounds like a kickback to me, or we're going to go to the same doctor that rubber stamped our paperwork. And we continued to see these trends occurring. Nothing was happening in the state of Ohio. So they came to me. They showed me the paperwork. They showed me the evidence. They gave me the names of not only the agencies, but many doctors who are in on this scheme where they're getting potential alleged kickbacks. So I've taken it to the Attorney General's office in addition to the U.S. Attorney's office. It's shocking to me that when we saw this in Minnesota, and by the way, this isn't new in Ohio. Back in 2012, we saw $10 to $14 million of fraud. A lot of it was the Somalian population then. And I know mainstream media will wig out on me. So let me just tell you, it was the Columbus Dispatch, which is our liberal newspaper, that exposed it. So these are just the facts. Yeah. We should have been tracking this closely, Rob, and we weren't.
It's, you know, and it's as simple as this. Everybody has these grandiose ideas about this very wealthy country having this big safety net for people and being able to help people. The moment that you set up an apparatus like that, it is going to get ripped apart by fraud, because at the end of the day, you've got a government that's collecting money that's not theirs and then distributing out to people that aren't them. They could not care less about that money. They just keep getting more of it. And again, in this country, we just print it. If we don't have enough, we send them $5 trillion, they're going to spend $7 trillion. They print the other $2 trillion, they can just print more. So nobody cares about fraud and waste. And this is going to be a story that is going to be the revelations that come from this over in the coming months when they start looking at this state by state. It is going to be staggering when people realize just how much money is being thrown away, lit on fire in this country because of demands that we have this huge sprawling government.
You're right. And the fact that Elon Musk came in and used Doge on a federal level, every state should have been asking the same question, especially after the COVID relief funding that went out. But we didn't. It wasn't until Minnesota continued to deny it and you had an independent investigator. But we need to audit America. Red state, blue state, I don't care. Exactly. This is taxpayer dollars today. And if you're lazy and you're not going to do your job, then get out of the way, because there's a lot of people who are willing to roll up their sleeves. My biggest problem in Ohio right now is taxpayers can't even see how much money is being spent, Rob. I have to make a public records request to actually get this data. I think as a taxpayer, I should know how much is being spent on this.
And anybody that's looking the other way, anybody that's allowing it to happen, that won't investigate it, they should be thrown in prison. If you're complicit in the bilking of the American taxpayer, you belong in jail. That's as simple as that. Mehek, good to see you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Great to see you. Thank you.
All right, Sebastian Gorka, the Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the White House, also one of the President's close advisors, joins us now. And, sir, good to have you. And we're going to talk about a number of things here. I want to start, of course, though, with Somalia and this story that just keeps on expanding. The reaction to this fraud the exposure of this fraud is ridiculous. This is the senior legal affairs reporter for Politico posting on X. At some point, the amateur effort to knock on doors of home daycares intersects with robust stand your ground laws. What is being exposed right now is so dangerous for the left, for the Democrat Party, for the people that this fake reporter supports, that he's essentially hoping that one of these Somali refugees running one of these scam operations in Minneapolis, I guess, shoots reporters that are going to knock on the door?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take your word for it, Rob, that that's an actual real quote from one of these fake news outlets. The idea that you're conflating
Politico.
What, a burglar breaking into your house and being allowed to use deadly force against that burglar, as opposed to a young reporter who's getting to the bottom of billions of dollars of built taxpayer funding. If there are any burglars in this story, it's not the young, fearless journalist. It's the Somali community members who were stealing your taxpayer funds, my taxpayers' funds, and had signs for their learning centers where they can't even spell the word learn grammatically correctly.
Yeah, I mean, is this a senior legal affairs reporter for Politico? And if does anything indicate better that the threat that this reporting, that this story has on all the institutions that this, he claims to be a reporter. He's not a reporter. He's a propagandist for the left in this country, for the Democrat Party. And he realizes that this threatens everything. I mean, who is going to want to vote for more government and for bigger safety nets when they see that all of our money is just being lit on fire and just dumped into refugees coming here and scamming us out of billions of dollars? Who's going to vote for this party once they see this story?
Well, look, I think there's two things that need to be said. Number one, that article, that quote-unquote legal expert, is doing what the left always does, which is normalizing violence. That's a dog whistle. Talking about stand your ground, legal authorities, that's about the use of deadly force, just as it was with people who called my friend Charlie Kirk a fascist for years. You're doing what? You're normalizing the option to use violence against those who politically differ with you. On the second point, with regards to who's going to vote for which party, look, I'll just say this. There are times at which, you get out of your lane. My thing is counterterrorism, the correct use of violence to protect the innocent. And you go, there can't be anybody in America who agrees with what we're witnessing in these reports. I mean, really, even if you're not a political individual, like most of the people who watch your show, Rob, who really get into these issues, if you're just a normal human being and you go, hang on a second, this is just wrong. This is my money. So I think this is a real wake-up call to the average American who doesn't live in the swamp.
Yeah, and just to really put a button on how the scale of this and how dangerous it is, you're talking about counterterrorism. Reports for the last month of Somali fraud funds being sent to al-Shabaab. We've seen that. You have a former Minnesota DHS whistleblower that said 7 years ago talking about this same issue. Take a listen to what he says here and where this money could be ending up.
Every time there was a terrorist attack, Paris, San Bernardino, France, Paris, even the Syrian war, we would, as investigators, we would get together the day after the attack and we would ponder amongst ourselves, how much Minnesota taxpayer dollars was being used to fund that war, that attack? What bought that gun? Where'd that money come from?
That's an unbelievable statement from 7 years ago, and it makes you realize just how much of this money could have been going to these places. What is the plan to try and figure out how much of our money went into the Middle East because this fraud was allowed?
Well, look, I'll quote, I think it was on a news program earlier today on Newsmax, where I saw a Secretary Noem at DHS state unequivocally this is going to be one of the largest investigations at DHS in terms of which immigrants are bilking the U.S. taxpayer out of literally billions of dollars. And I was at a meeting today that I chaired on counterterrorism where we looked into the, and this is unclassified, recent arrest in Texas of somebody who has now been charged with material support to ISIS for trying to wire $38 to ISIS. He committed a crime that's going to put him away for many, many years if he is found guilty by a jury of his peers. And we're not talking about $38 in this instance. What we're talking about is potentially millions of dollars leaving America from those fraudulent entities to fund terrorist FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations abroad. So we have only just begun. So whether it's Stephen Miller, Governor Noem, Kash Patel, we are on the case and people will face justice, Rob.
Sebastian Gorka, counterterrorism for the White House. We appreciate you coming on, sir. Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. All right, the pressure remains on Venezuela. The president is not backing down. The White House is not backing down on Maduro. Where is this going as the CIA reveals that a land strike has been made on a port? That's next.
Don't let hackers start the new year with your money. Cyber criminals are targeting your savings and identity and your personal information. Respond with Guardio. Guardio is a security tool that stops fake sites in real time, flags malicious emails, and blocks phishing links, helping you outsmart modern threats and stay in control of your online security. Run a free scan to see if your information is already exposed by going to Guardio.com now.
You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It's helped me enjoy the holidays again. Join the thousands who have experienced relief and get 30% off your Signal Relief Patch today. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers I've seen in pain.
Signal Relief is truly giving me my happiness back.
The Signal Relief Patch puts pain on the back burner.
The Signal Relief Patch has been life-changing.
This is too good to be true. It's too easy.
In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. This patch was a game changer for me, and it can be for you too. Trust me, the patch works.
This is the story of the one who knows that choosing Grainger for next-day delivery and professional-grade products can help him fly through the day like clockwork. Call, click, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why are so many dogs dying before their time? In my experience, great health starts with great food. That's why I created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It contains powerful canine superfoods that directly support your dog's digestion, skin and coat, mobility, and so much more. And it's air dried. That means cooked low and slow, no high heat. We have thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 50% off with our special TV offer. Go to badlandsranch.com/TV. That's badlandsranch.com/TV.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Welcome back. The pressure on Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela is not letting up. It's clear Trump wants this dictator out. He typically gets his way. And the escalation of this thing continuing is getting more and more interesting by the day. New reports revealing the CIA carried out a drone strike on a Venezuelan port facility earlier this month. That's the first attack that directly targets Venezuela. That would be considered a land strike. The administration believed that the port was being used by Tren de Aragua, big cartel gang there, to store and move drugs onto boats, shipping them out of the country. Trump appeared to acknowledge that operation for the first time yesterday. Take a look.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs. So we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
So this also comes as the U.S. military carried out its 30th strike on a drug boat yesterday, eviscerating 2 more drug runners, bringing the total killed 107 dead since the drug trafficking crackdown began. So Venezuela, this has been fascinating to me this whole time. Victoria Coates is a former Deputy National Security Advisor, joining us now along with Alex Gray, former National Security Council Chief of Staff. Both worked in the Trump administration. Good to have you both here. Victoria, I guess we're now making strikes on land. That's how I think this is. So what do you think that means, and where is this going?
Well, good to be with you, Rob, and good to see you too, Alex. No, this is definitely escalating because the president's taking the situation extremely seriously. It's not just a law enforcement issue that we're dealing with here. This is a direct threat to the American people. And the administration made another very important announcement yesterday. The Treasury Department is sanctioning about a dozen entities and individuals for illicit arms trading between Venezuela and who? Iran. And so the Iranians are running weapons into Venezuela. That's what's being used by these drug cartels. This is what takes this into another level to being a direct national security threat to the United States.
Alex, you know Trump. I mean, we know him. I mean, he's not going to just let he's not going to do all this and just let Maduro continue to run this country. I mean, I just feel like at some point the guy's going to be gone. Like, I don't think he's not going to want to look weak here and make this big splash and make all this noise. And then 2 years from now, Maduro is still running Venezuela. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob. This is not going to be an operation where the president starts something and doesn't bring it to a conclusion. And I think that's evidenced by the comprehensive strategy that he's undertaken here. So you're cutting off, as Dr. Coates said, you're going after sanctioning their source of supply from Iran. You're going after the oil that's violating the sanctions. You're going after the Trinidad and the other cartels that are intimately linked with the regime, now including airstrikes by the intelligence community. This is a comprehensive effort to strangle the regime and to force Maduro to either leave or for actors within the regime to make a change themselves. And I actually think, Rob, that's what the president's aiming here for. When you think about the things that Dr. Coates mentioned, what we see with the attack, the embargo on the inbound ships, what this is ultimately going to do is put pressure on the elites around Maduro who don't want to see their personal security and their financial security compromised. And I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on the regime itself. And ultimately, maybe that means Maduro goes.
Yeah. Victoria, I've got 20 seconds left, but the moves that he's made on the oil with the tankers and what you're seeing now, do you have any prediction about how long Maduro can hold on to power, how long he'll still be in control of Venezuela?
If we keep after those tankers, not for very long, because that's literally his ATM. That's how he keeps his buddies happy, and that's how he retains power. So I think if we pursue those tankers, we've done this before. We did it with the Iranians in the first term. It's totally doable. That's what finally cuts Maduro off, and we have a good change then in Venezuela.
Okay. Good to see you both. Victoria Coates, Alex Gray. Happy New Year, guys. Thanks.
Happy New Year.
National Guard now being sent to New Orleans, the latest effort in President Trump's crime crackdown. We've got the governor of the state, Jeff Landry, joining us next. Some amazing crime numbers coming out. That's all next.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports and your day becomes better and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
I really love Balance of Nature.
There's so many vegetables and so many fruits.
I love everything about it.
It's just such a phenomenal product. So, got to keep doing it.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Daddy.
That was us over 10 years ago.
Now LifeVac is responsible for saving over 4,000 lives from choking.
In the time it takes you to pick up the phone and call, another life could be saved.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1 to 2 seconds.
Protecting families has always been our mission. I'm sure you love your family like I love my daughter. Do us all a favor and get your own LifeVac now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-LifeVac. Order now.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone.
I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our Restoration Guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
All right, welcome back. The Trump administration launching another federal deployment of the National Guard, this time sending 350 troops to New Orleans, the Big Easy, right before the new year, as blue state leaders have been slamming this move by the president, sending the troops into these dangerous cities. But the numbers really don't lie, and that's what's incredible. New crime data showing the nationwide murder rate has fallen dramatically in 2025, down 20% compared to last year. Motor vehicle theft also plunging quite dramatically, down 23%, including carjackings, very dangerous stuff. Robberies are down a little more than 18% from the past year as well. This works. They can complain about it all they want, but this is what works. If you want to keep a country safe, if you want crime to go down, this is what needs to be done. Governor Jeff Landry, state of Louisiana, joins us tonight to talk more about what's coming for his state. Troops coming into New Orleans. You don't have a problem with this. You're more interested in seeing less, dead black teenagers and young men on the streets of a major American city, which is something we see all over the place. And that to you is more important than whatever, Democrat talking points they have on this issue are, right?
Yeah, look, I'm more interested in saving lives and keeping people protected, as is President Trump, than those that just want to use this as some sort of political cannon fodder to divide Americans. Look, safety is an issue that transcends political parties. Who doesn't want to be safe in their homes and in their communities? And no one understands that better than President Trump and I. That's one of the things that I did when I came into this governorship, was double down on crime and criminal justice and making sure that we gave victims a voice and put criminals behind bars. And we welcome the president's help. It was a great Christmas gift he did this year for the city of New Orleans and Louisiana by sending the National Guard into the city.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if there's a way, to make a very, some of our American cities are more dangerous than countries that are notoriously dangerous around the world. And I think people ignore that and pretend it's not happening. I think it's very easy for Americans and especially I think for liberals to just write off, inner city crime and black on black crime because it happens so often and because the media almost largely doesn't even cover it any longer. But it's still people dying. It's still a lot of people dying in American cities. If there's a way to stop that, Who cares if it's not fashionable to the left, the manner in which it's done? You're saving lives. I want to switch with you real quick, and I want to get to a completely different topic here as we move toward the new year, and we've got all these big college football games coming up. You recently wrote a column for Real Clear Policy talking about fixing college football with common sense, laying out issues within the sport, calling for Congress to fix the unchecked NIL chaos and the transfer portal. I'm limited in my understanding of college football. I know a bit about it, but I went to IU, which is suddenly a great school. When I was there, it wasn't so great, so I didn't pay a lot of attention. Talk to me about what the issue is. I know these players are getting paid. I know my IU quarterback's making like $3 million a year. What do you see as the problem here? What are you trying to fix?
Well, look, let's start with a little bit of facts, right? Fact number one, college sports has twice the viewership of the NBA, yet less than half the revenue. Last year, over 1,000 athletes and 40 programs in Division I schools became obsolete since the Supreme Court turned college football into a circus rather than a tradition. We also know that $1.4 billion worth of fees are placed on the back of students to support college athletics. And what's happening right now, fans are frustrated. There's a terrible calendar. I witnessed it as LSU had to go out and search for a coach mid-season. And we ended up getting an unbelievable prize in being able to recruit Coach Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss to come to LSU. That's what gave me the eye-opener of what's going on and the problem with college sports.
I watch it and I think this is a dynamo. They're doing so great. All right. Well, that's interesting to see. Governor, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, not a problem. Look, I think fans out there want to see college football fixed. They don't want to see these continual portals that athletes move from one place to another and outlandish contracts and the money that is flowing through the system.
That's an interesting take. Governor, we appreciate you. Good to see you. Jeff Landry, thank you, sir.
Okay, take care.
All right, a tennis match proves exactly why biological men can't be in women's sports. Got that coming up next.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories before our sale ends.
Patriots. America was built by people who believed in something greater than themselves, something worth protecting. Today, one of America's top growing industries is political campaigns, a multi-billion-dollar movement powered by tech, data, and the American people. Meet FullPack, a tech platform trusted by thousands of campaigns nationwide to connect directly with voters. FullPack is expected to begin trading on NASDAQ soon, under the ticker GOTV for Get Out the Vote. But before we begin trading, we're offering a limited number of shares to patriots like you for $5 each, providing your portfolio exposure to this fast-growing market. Capitalism helped build America into the shining beacon on the hill. Now you can own a stake in the heartbeat of America. Visit gotv.com/invest or call 8777-30-GOTV to learn more.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist-recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet, exercise,
could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift DX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Samaritan's Purse is ready to show the love of Christ to people in the most difficult circumstances. But we can't go without you. With your support, we can build homes, heal hearts, provide critical relief, and bring hope to a world in need. Donate now at SamaritansPurse.org. Let's get to work in Jesus' name.
Welcome back. A modern-day battle of the sexes tennis match ends up proving why it's so important to keep men out of women's sports. Aryna Sabalenka, the #1 women's tennis player in the world right now, facing off against Nick Kyrgios over the weekend in Dubai. Sabalenka is going to be one of the greatest women to ever play the sport. She's at her peak right now as well. Kyrgios was once a fairly strong player, but currently is ranked 671 in the world. He's barely playing. He's all banged up, and his career is probably on the downtrend, if we're going to be honest. And even still, Kyrgios won easily, 6-3, 6-3, despite his side of the court, as you can see in the video. See how much bigger his side of the court is? He's got a lot more to defend. And also, they eliminated the first serve, essentially. They only gave each side one serve, which takes away his biggest weapon, which is his powerful first serve. Take a look.
Your champion of the Battle of the Sexes.
What an amazing match this has been, not just in terms of tennis, but just in terms of experience for the crowds. You've got an entertainment.
So kind of a weird little experiment they did in Dubai, right? But it's a prime example of why men, no matter what they call themselves, cannot be in women's sports. They gave Sabalenka every opportunity. She's the better player when you compare women and men. And she still got trounced in this match. Christina Bobb and Larry Elder join us tonight to talk about this. I thought it was interesting. You know, we don't do a lot of sports here, but this obviously has a political angle to it, Larry. And if there's any bigger proof that you need, that you've got to protect women's sports. This was the biggest proof I've seen. You got to protect it. Nobody can deny it.
Well, Rob, at least we're talking about the 670th ranked male we otherwise would not be talking about. When's the last time anybody talked about Kyrgios? Look, obviously men are bigger, faster, stronger. It was a stunt. The rules were changed in order to make it somewhat competitive, and she still got trounced. I recall when Venus and Serena were at the top of their game, and somebody who's ranked over 100 beat them handily. Everybody knows that men are bigger, faster, and stronger. But it was an entertainment spectacle. The crowd seemed to have a good time, so nobody got hurt. It wasn't boxing. It wasn't a contact sport, so nobody got hurt.
Right, yeah. I mean, I remember when Serena was on the talk show years ago and talked about how it's you can't put men and women together in this sport, and that was Serena Williams. I mean, she's a beast. She's an incredible women's tennis player. She will probably be the best that's ever played. Christina, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I love the way you described it as a weird little experiment. And that's how it came across to me as well. I'm not sure what the benefit was to this. I think both players lost. You know, she was resoundingly defeated and he beat a girl. I mean, I don't, you know, I think it just demonstrates that men don't belong in women's sports, that men and women are fundamentally different and good at different things. And you know, I didn't love this, but it is what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I thought it was such a strange thing to do, but I think the resounding message was one of what we've been barking about for a couple years in this country, which is you can't let these trans men come in and just trounce women in these sports when they've spent their whole childhood and their teenage years working up to something, and then you get a guy that's calling himself a girl comes in and just beats everybody. I mean, it's as embarrassing as watching Kyrgios beat Sabalenka was. Is what the truth is. I want to move on. I want to talk about something else before I let you guys go. Larry, one of MAGA's loudest former cheerleaders, a woman who was so sycophantic for Trump that I actually found her embarrassing for most of the time she was in Congress, has now completely flipped and proven herself to be a total fraud. And we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I didn't want to come out and hit her that hard, but I'm done with it now. Who has now become nothing more than, I think, a useful idiot for the Democrat Party. She has done another interview here. She's been on The View. Now she's talking to the New York Times, denouncing Trump's Christian faith, saying our side has been trained by Donald Trump to never apologize, never admit when you're wrong. You just keep pummeling your enemies no matter what. And as a Christian, I don't believe in doing that. Larry, my question to you is, was Marjorie Taylor Greene a fraud for the last 5-7 years? Or is she a fraud now? How do you see this?
You know, I really don't know. I don't understand why she's not only broken with Trump the way she has, but is now trashing him the way she's doing right now. We have plenty of people who'll do that for free on CNN, on MSNBC, and on the other side of the aisle. I have no idea what's going on with her. I just wish her well. I pray for her.
Yeah, I understand. Christina, I mean, it's one thing to, if you're going to get out of politics, you're going to walk away. It's one thing to do it like that. It's another thing to go into these institutions that you mocked your whole career, the institutions that are going to just use you, which is what they're doing now, as some kind of a way to go after the president. And that's exactly what she's fallen into. I don't understand.
I'm not sure where she's trying to go with it, because the left will never accept her as one of them. And certainly she's alienated, especially in this latest article interview that she did with the New York Times, alienated some of the Republican base. So all I can say is I hope that there's some good that comes from this, whether it's for her or somehow there's some reconciliation. But I think it's emblematic of a larger rift that could potentially be happening within the Republican side, whether it's the Republican Party or fractions of the Republican Party. There's certainly some debate going on. Yeah. But yeah, the article was disappointing.
Certainly was. Christina Bobb, Larry Elder, good to see you both. Thanks so much. Happy New Year, you guys.
Thanks, Rob.
A look at just how insane they've gone in the Pacific Northwest up next.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
This is the story of the one. The one knows the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a teammate like Granger, she's confident that she will always win the day. Call, click, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
In baseball, power and drive are the difference between a ground out and a home run.
Football players need stamina and energy to be at their best when it counts the most.
And guys, as we age,
if you're not at your peak, you will feel it on the field and everywhere else. That's why we got Nugenics Total T2.
From the #1 selling testosterone brand at GNC and Walmart, Nugenics Total T2, packed with even more man-boosting power. It's the next generation testosterone booster that sends nitric oxide levels skyrocketing in just 3 hours. Feel leaner, stronger, and ready for anything with more energy and drive. Get your complimentary bottle by texting UP to 231-231.
There's one more thing.
She'll like it too.
New T2 is not available in stores. Get your complimentary bottle by texting UP to 231-231. Do it now and we'll also send you a bottle of Nugenics Thermo X, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, absolutely free.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. We'll be there.
You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It's helped me enjoy the holidays again. Join the thousands who have experienced relief and get 30% off your Signal Relief Patch today. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers I've seen in pain.
Signal Relief is truly giving me my happiness back.
The Signal Relief Patch puts pain on the back burner.
The Signal Relief Patch has been life-changing.
This is too good to be true. It's too easy.
In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. This patch was a game changer for me, and it can be for you too. Trust me, the patch works.
And welcome back. Time now for news from the left, and an indication to start here of just how insane they have gone in the ultra-left-wing Pacific Northwest. A convicted Oregon killer named Kyle Hedquist, who served 27 years in prison for the execution-style murder of a 19-year-old woman in 1995, put a woman on the ground and shot her in the head, has now been reappointed to serve on the city's Community Police Review Board and the Civil Service Commission. Yes, this is a real story. Hedquist was granted clemency back in 2022 from a life sentence by former Governor Kate Brown, who is a psychotic white liberal woman who ran the state at the time. Salem City Council voted 5-4 earlier this month to reappoint Hedquist to the Police Review Board. So people that murder women execution style are reviewing police officers' activities. They voted unanimously to put him on that board a year ago. They voted 5-4 this time, as some are now claiming to not have known Hedquist's very violent past, despite his clemency from the governor and his work as a criminal justice reform advocate. I think they knew. It's just that now that the story is out in the open and people are talking about it, they're all trying to pretend like they didn't know. But these are the people that are running blue cities and states. If you want them to know why everything's going to hell so fast, these are the kinds of people that run in the states. They put guys like that in there to review the police. Next up, Bill Maher continuing to air his frustrations with the fully Trump deranged in this country. Take a listen to this.
It is a phenomenon we have never seen before. Right. That one person would dominate
every
just the national
every dinner
for over a decade.
Yeah.
You know, but and I do think you have to fight that. Like I say, if that's your whole personality, is the first thing out of your mouth is, what are we going to do about Donald Trump? I just can't.
That's most of the people that live in the city that he lives in, by the way. Certainly most of the elites that he hangs out with spend all of their day hyperventilating over Donald Trump. And again, how funny that they have to deal with him for, it's going to end up being 12 years after the 2020 election. What happened there, they're going to have to deal with Trump for even longer, making that second term after a 4-year break. Next up, Eric Swalwell, former California congressman, running the most embarrassing campaign to be governor yet. The pudgy 50-year-old sleazeball trying to go viral by cursing pretty much every day on TikTok, talking about how he's going to save California, the state that he and his party have completely decimated. Swalwell now claiming that the DOJ is weaponized against him.
I'm going on offense against Donald Trump, and I just put senior Trump officials on notice. Donald Trump, once again, is trying to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his enemies list. That's me, Adam Schiff, Tish James, and Lisa Cook. But I'm not having it. Why is he doing this? Because we had the nerve to stand up to his corruption. The allegations that Bill Pulte has launched against me and others are nonsense. My lawsuit against Donald Trump and his team is not.
The moment that you try to apply the rules that they created to them, this is how they respond. As Eric Swalwell, one of the most unimpressive people in this country, is going to fall on his face trying to be the governor of California, and we're going to all be here to watch it and laugh heartily. And finally here, news from the left, liberal artists continuing to fight the Trump Kennedy Center name change in Washington. The Cookers, a jazz septet, were slated to perform twice on New Year's Eve at the Kennedy Center, no longer performing now. saying that it's because of the name change. The band releasing a statement saying jazz was born from struggle and from a relentless insistence on freedom of thought, expression, and the full human voice. Some of us have been making this music for many decades, and that history still shapes us. We are not turning away from our audience and do want to make sure that when we return to the bandstand, the room is able to celebrate the full presence of the music and everyone in it. Not exactly sure what to make of that, but the band's drummer Billy Hart telling the New York Times that the center's name change did have something to do, evidently had a role, acknowledging that the group was concerned about possible reprisals too, and that's exactly what it is, reprisals, right? That's the power of cancel culture on the left. That band is not performing, not because they feel a certain way, but because they're terrified that if they do, with all of this attention right now on the Kennedy Center after the name change, they're terrified that if they actually perform, the fascist left is going to destroy their band and demand boycotts of their future shows. That's why they're doing it. And by the way, Kennedy Center should do something interesting. Kiss, Creed, some of these bands that are a little bit more level-headed politically, give them a residency. Give them a month. Give them 10 shows, something like that. I thought that'd be a really cool idea for some of these bands, and they would love to do it too. All right, a predictable criticism from another boring Hollywood political activist up next.
I'm an artist, and I'm in my studio. I'm hearing the ads about Relief Factor, and I've got pain in my neck, and it's getting worse, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go ahead and order this. 2 weeks later, and I've got much better range of motion. I'm able to carry these big canvases around. I'm just very, very grateful that I gave the product a try.
If pain is affecting your life, give Relief Factor a try. Call or go online. Get your 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here. And if you're having a hard time hearing, call MD Hearing because they changed my life and they can change yours too. I was wearing expensive hearing aids for years until a good friend of mine told me about MD Hearing. I bought a pair of the hearing aids with no doctor visit, no prescription, and no hassle. I got fitted right over the phone and I've never had a better pair of hearing aids. I'm even wearing them right now.
Call now and get 2 rechargeable Neo hearing aids for just $297 with a free portable charging case and free shipping. The rechargeable Neo is nearly invisible with its tiny in-the-ear canal design, and you can get 2 rechargeable Neo hearing aids with a 45-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free lifetime U.S.-based support for only $297.
Call my friends at MD Hearing and get the over-the-counter hearing aids that I use for you.
Call 800-877-8100.
Imagine this banana is a burner less lethal launcher, capable of shooting rock-hard kinetic and tear gas mixed with pepper chemical irritants.
The ammo can incapacitate an attacker from 60 feet away without causing death.
This Byrna less lethal launcher is legal in all 50 states. No permits required.
Over 600,000 Byrna pistol launchers have been sold to government agencies, law enforcement agencies, and to private citizens.
Do you want to know what the Byrna less lethal launcher looks like? Visit Byrna.com.
Introducing Stogo, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more at Stoco.com.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
All right, and finally tonight, George Clooney, great actor, loves movies. But we know his politics, and Clooney insists that he is very worried that CBS will no longer align with the other broadcast networks in spewing his exact ideological beliefs. One of Hollywood's most left-leaning political activists was asked by Variety about what's happening at CBS with the Ellisons buying it, Barry Weiss coming in as the new editor-in-chief of CBS News and dismantling the network as we speak. Clooney saying, my primary loyalty is with my country, but I'm much more worried about how we inform ourselves and how we're going to discern reality without a functioning press. Now, remember, for the last several years, all three broadcast networks have been spewing the ideology of people like George Clooney, and that's it. So we have not had a real media, as far as federally regulated media, in a very long time. And Clooney is so concerned about this, he and his family are now citizens of France, which is the funniest place that they could have run to, a Western nation that is most quickly committing suicide via Islamic importation and all of these different woke ideologies that Clooney supports. So he'll have a security escort around him constantly in Paris so he doesn't get his watch stolen by North African gangs, and be thankful.
All right, good evening. Welcome back to Finnerty. Glad you're here. I'm Rob Finnerty. Hope you had a great holiday. It is good to be back because there is a lot happening, especially in the state of Minnesota, where Tim Walz needs a lawyer, like a good lawyer. And Ilhan Omar needs a lawyer, a good lawyer. And Ilhan Omar's husband needs a lawyer. The Minnesota Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, also needs a lawyer. So does the Attorney General of Minnesota. And they all need lawyers for the same thing. Allegedly, reportedly, and possibly knowingly allowing a multi-billion-dollar fraud to happen across the state of Minnesota on a level that we've just never seen before. The